Much love and many blessings. Do you feel this energy today? Do you see the sky? Do you see the moon? How is Saturday night treating you? Wow. Okay, so we're going to create this sacred space, definitely to talk about just the full moon energy that's transpiring, because this week has definitely for the collective been experiencing a lot of preparation for a lot of interchanges and external shifts. And this is really evidenced by, when we look at the placements and the shifts taking place within ourselves. We see the Venus retrograde that's taking place in Capricorn. So, anytime there's shifts there, we're going to see significant shifts within ourselves and within the collective. So, I think it's really important to definitely talk about this full moon, because it's the last full moon of the year. But in particular, because this full moon is in Gemini, so we're going to be dealing with polarities automatically. But also the fact that it's in Gemini in the time of the Sun Sagittarius, that means that we're going to be dealing with, two polarities that don't really like to be controlled. So you have Sagittarius with the always seeking new horizons, and Gemini, who has to experience things for themselves. So we have two extreme signs that really have to find ways to see it for themselves, and most importantly, in a healthy way. So with this being a Sun Sagittarius and full moon Gemini, I think it's important to bring awareness to the areas that are being focused on. We have Sagittarius, so that's going to be the hips. That's going to be our thighs, like that whole structure. So that's really kind of like how we stand up. And if you really think about like metaphysically, like symbolically, like that area or like the hips, that area has to do its job regardless of whether it wants to or not, because it has to support the weight of the whole body. So when we deal with like Sagittarius, we deal with deep wounds, but we also deal with wanting to make motion or travel. But a lot of times, because of the placement of where buildup happens within the hips, we may have to ignore the things that are taking place sometimes, because we want to keep moving. Like if like you can lose like an arm, you can lose like a foot, you can lose like any limb, and it can be debilitating. It can be like, it can slow you down. But like if you like really take out the hips, then like you're kind of down. So a lot of times the hips, that area takes in a lot of, it's like a sponge when it comes to trauma, and it will store a lot of energy. So when we step into the Sun Sagittarius season, we since we're dealing with ninth house vibes, we're dealing with higher thinking and, the things that we want to step into, but we're also dealing with how to make those things happen, how to step into those places. So you may have been noticing with the Sagittarius season that there's been a lot of like brash actions, especially which I'll be talking about. I don't really want to go into in this live in a lot of detail, but just talking just a lot about the Venus retrograde in Capricorn. There's a lot of love influences going on there. But with this portal right now, with this full moon, there really is a significant drive that you'll be noticing in the collective. You may be feeling these sensations within yourself. One, Gemini brings that jovial, wanting to have fun, and there's been a lot of hang-ups. So you may be noticing closer to, especially today and this weekend, and maybe even leading up to this week, you've been thinking to yourself about things that you haven't had the chance to do, the things that have been left undone, and you're wondering hey, okay, how can I make those things happen, or why haven't I been doing those things, or maybe this is my chance to do those things. So a lot of this has a lot to do with the Lilith placements, and it's either way that we're dealing with Lilith placements, or just another way we're talking about is suppressed desires, or things that we have been telling ourselves that we don't want. And a lot of times, just as a people, just intrinsically, the thing that we fear, or the thing that we are denying ourselves, or we're putting all these barriers in place, is usually the thing that we actually want the most. So in a lot of ways, we'll see, you may have noticed since the new moon leading up to the full moon, that a lot of the energy, depending on whether you set intentions or not, that's key, because we set intentions unconsciously, whether we do ritual work or if we actually put active focus into making those things happen. But we'll notice that a lot of the energy, especially coming from the Gemini, if we haven't been doing those things that we've been putting off, then we'll feel this this urge, especially if Lilith has been denied, or just those things that are deep or suppressed within your sacral chakra. Some of these things can be trauma triggered or traumatic, or comfort vices, especially because of the flare up of the Venus retrograde in Capricorn. Capricorn has a heavy tendency to touch on vices and that devil energy, to touch on those things that if we haven't been doing it, we'll find a way to do it. So if you've been, you may notice in the collective that if you have not been doing those things that you've been thinking about or putting off, or just regretting not getting to, it'd be harder during this time to actually resist those things that you've always been thinking about in the back of your head, whether it's relationship wise, or just that thing that you never did. It could be, especially if it's the more risky things, or just getting out of your the confined shell, especially if you've been in serious commitments, and having the fuel. Anytime we have Sagittarius and Gemini get together, we're really talking a hot air balloon on a metaphysical end. So anything is really possible. On the positive side, it's a really good time to, this portal, this moon, is a really good time to explore and expand on self. There's a safe space to do it if you're being honest about your capabilities and who you are inwardly and outwardly, just across the fucking board. It's a great time to discover new things. Anytime the moon is in an air sign, is a great time to communicate, whether it's with self or just other things beyond self, especially with this being Saturday on a day like today with underworld work and conjuring. This is a really powerful time. I would say personally that it can vary moon to moon, whether or not to do ritual work. With this particular one, I didn't necessarily believe in doing too much offensive or external work or ritual work. I believe that this was a very powerful time with how the energy read with this moon. It was a very, very reflective moon. It was a very reflective and communicating moon, especially with the moon being in an air sign like Gemini. And this, because of the Gemini in particular itself, the polarity is bringing a lot of polarities in people's lifestyles back into awareness. It may be related to bringing back a centering or a wholeness, whether you have been leaning too much on your thinking and you haven't been giving enough credit to your heart. So you may be feeling this relationship of the heart coming back into polarity, or you may have been denying an authentic aspect of yourself or denying a type of relationship or lifestyle that you wanted. And it's just all of these things. It's just anything across the board where there has been an imbalance. There's the bridging or the polarity of it coming back. If you've been being too conservative and it hasn't been authentic to what is being suppressed within maybe in your sacral or root traumas, or imbalances, or even Lilith placements, then that will be kind of coming out now, and it can be a little traumatic or even a little scary, depending on how severe or how much you've been denying this aspect of self. But I was saying on the fucking positive end, but yeah, on the positive end, it is a time that you can really expand on these aspects if you've been a little uncomfortable with self, and you've been wanting to really just see what you're capable of. The universe and spirit may actually have been moving and shifting things within your environment, workplace, relationships, that's actually giving you the opportunity to show what you're capable of. Especially kind of touching back on that Venus in Capricorn, and with that retrograde, a lot of times Capricorn, when we're kind of forced or pretty much forced or required to show what our worth is and to put our best efforts forward based on our skills and the things that we have available to us. So with this full moon, this Gemini, this Sagittarius, I think one thing like I was saying, on the negative side that's really important to note on is it can really touch on fears, because Gemini collects a lot of information. So there's a lot of movement in Mercury. And with Capricorn placement in Mercury, Capricorn leaning on the negative side can be very pessimistic or cynical or critical about things. So if you're being presented with a lot of data, you may be overwhelming yourself with overthinking, because overthinking is a common trait associated with Capricorn. So you may be feeling a lot of need, maybe having heavy dreams, maybe even be having repetitive dreams about the same thing if you're trying to figure out a situation. Or just in your waking day, you may be dealing with a lot of thinking and just trying to figure out what's the best for the situation. So you can feel this heavy mental weight that's kind of taking place. And with the Gemini placement, one of the negatives that can kind of go on is this, we may not be putting a rein on what's taking place within our dynamics. So what they're not really the astrology is not going to say, especially with this full moon placement, is there's really no reins. This is kind of fueled by the Jupiter and Sagittarius sun energy, and then Gemini with its kind of wanting to explore the curiosities. There's really no rein. So during this time on a physical end, we may be feeling like we can pretty much get in and out of any situation without much mess, or it might not be too complicated if anything does go on. And that can actually be a little misleading, because we find out that when we step into the situations, that we may actually bite off more than we can chew. So I have to say that with this energy, it can be very volatile. So it's definitely important to kind of pace yourself, because when we get Gemini energy, sometimes there's action without a plan. So I would say, and most importantly, with these opportunities, just take a breath and just be honest with yourself about what's going on. But really, if we want to optimize, I would say with this particular moon, if we want to if we want to optimize this moon, this one in particular, I kind of focus more on white and black candles, just either protective healing, just making sure that foundations, both personally and physically, are solid. Maybe working with empowering and healing the inner and the sacred, because this is a really reflective time, because this is the last moon of the year. So this moon naturally calls into our awareness everything that has transpired. Everything that's transpired this year in 2021. So it's very natural during the time that we are thinking on how everything is kind of led up to this point, the energy that we put in and where it's brought us to. Have we kind of followed our own toe, or have we been honoring our personal calls, especially with how 2022 is shaping up? So with this being the last moon of the year and it being Sagittarius, when we get into Sagittarius, any placement of Sagittarius, there's usually not necessarily a lot of words, but a lot of thinking and very intense actions. Sometimes left field. So what happens is when we have this presented to us, we may get into our heads more. We're dealing with ninth house vibes, so we're dealing with like religion and faith and hope, the things that we kind of want to expand on. So we're also like when we're dealing with the crown, we're dealing with the higher chakras as well. So like like the crown and the what we're envisioning. So one of the things we have to be careful of is making sure that we're actually getting the facts right, because we may be just looking at a situation, because Sagittarius amplifies sight and vision. So we have to make sure that we're actually getting the situation correctly, because Sagittarius can gas, the Jupiter energy can perceive a situation and make it more than what it actually is. So with that influence backed by Gemini, it's kind of like, yeah, go, 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 go. And it's kind of like there's nobody, everybody's saying yes. Everybody's a yes man in the group, and nobody's kind of like looking to see what, if this is actually something to be done, and everybody's just kind of focused on that it can be done. Most importantly, I would say when you have this kind of energy, and especially with this being a reflective moon, we really need to like ask ourselves, shoot, clear out the throat chakra a little bit. But definitely with this opportunity, I would say that with this being such a reflective moon, when it comes to like existing and just like what we're trying to like, gain for ourselves as far as our authentic walk, our self-love journey, and all that good stuff in between, is the main things that really like debilitate us is conflict. Like every time we have conflict, we can't do anything. Like we have a conflict with our desires, then like if we tell ourselves that something that we are feeling within our heart is something that we want. If something within ourselves is something we want, but we're in our minds telling ourselves that we don't want this because what our family thinks or what our friends think or what we think people think we look like, or just whatever notions that we hold that create our image body, there creates an imbalance, because life needs a balance in order to sustain itself and to be happy. And if it's not receiving the energy for its lifestyle that it needs to exist, because then it creates its own prison. So you create a prison because you're trying to conform and not be judged or just deal with the conflict, but you create an inner conflict because that energy has to go somewhere. So if you don't deal with the conflict externally, then you conform to an external projection that's being projected over you, and then you have to conflict within yourself. It's like telling your white blood cells not to fight a virus, and they're naturally going to fight the shit. And you don't want to fight it because that virus is in the cool now, it's trending, and it just sounds stupid. But this is what we do with our energy. This is what we do with metaphysical energy, with situations, with things that aren't healthy for our lifestyle. And we tell ourselves that we have to conform and not fight or adapt in a way that's healthy for us. And we just do this fucking dry, this cold turkey conformity that's not really healthy for our energy body. It's really more like a cold shock to our system, and we're told to kind of just be this bland thing for whatever situations that we're in. So a lot of what happens is we create these inner conflicts, and when there is a conflict anywhere, we don't move. And if we choose to not deal with the external conflict, and we allow that energy to go inward to be an inner conflict. So you're creating this motion outwardly. You may be getting money. You may have the image of this relationship that you're trying to maintain so you can look a certain way. You might have a certain number of followers and have this certain number of clout, a certain amount of money, but you might not be happy, and all these things, because within there's an inner conflict where you're not receiving the thing that you want. So you're moving externally, but inwardly you're not moving. So you keep coming back to the same pause. And even no matter what you're presented with, you can never really maximize the tools or the energy that's external to you, because inwardly you're an infant. So there's a motion that's trying to take place, and there's this motion that's trying to take place is this denial of the things that you've told yourself are childlike, this denial of the things that you said didn't matter anymore because you've grown up, and now you're collecting money, and now you're getting bitches, and now you're getting all these things, but somewhere you're still not happy. So your spirit is trying to bring this back into your awareness. And so for a lot of you, if you haven't been honoring your authentic calls, you're feeling very conflicted during this time, and there may be a lot of lash out. I would probably say, not probably, that's not probably. With the masculine and the collective, with this like last kind of like week, especially leading up to this full moon, there has been a lot of tension within the masculine energy within the collective. It may have been flare-ups or domestic disputes and just flare-ups and things like that. Some severe, some light, but just these are showing up because of the sun energy during this time of the things that are suppressed. It can't be hidden anymore. This energy has to come out. So there's been a lot of having to keep things in, a lot of things bottled up, a lot of relationships with a lot of volatility just due to the nature of the pandemic and the fears and things going on. So what's happening now during this time, like I said, when we touch on Sagittarius, we deal with a lot of the inner wounds, especially as they relate to blocking our movement, our travel, and exploring the things that we believe about the world around us. So during this time, it's not necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this time for as far as spell work or ritual work to do things that necessarily do external changes more so than doing inward reflecting and healing. It's a very powerful time to bring out your best aspects of self, soul retrieval, ancestral work, healing work, connecting with personal spirits that are actually in a line and resonating with your energy field, empowering your energy field, things of that nature. There's a very phenomenal shift taking place. And I would say that most of all, it's the opportunity to, with Sagittarius and that fire placement, even though it is a seer sign, there's something very unique during this time period because of the placements about intentions. The voice is not supposed to be used to externally during this time to lash out for idle gossip, because the words are so powerful when we're in the Sagittarius season, because feelings are so powerful. And feelings are so powerful right now that it's like this amplified manifesting fuel. Feelings make intentions crystalline or crystallize. So you may be noticing that things that you are feeling and notice or seeing about a situation might as well be fucking real. So that's why it's very important to take your time, because the feelings that you conjure up are pretty much what you're manifesting. So knowing that, it's not really good to get into arguments or to keep hostile words to a minimum. But if there's things that need to be resolved, obviously you need to take that space of clarity. This is actually a very powerful time that if you're going to be using words, instead of using them for gossip or just to argue or to tear down, to actually use them to counter the things that you want to take into 2020. Because this 2021 moon, Gemini moon, with it being a reflective moon, it's also a moon that allows a deep release. So even though it is a full moon, it has some of the properties of a new moon, in which when we usually kind of cast new intentions. But this one, I would say that kind of reflecting back, if some of you did set new intentions on the new moon, you may be reflecting and bringing your mindfulness back to the things that you set, because you're seeing the momentum of those things happen like so rapidly. And you may be actually surprised because usually when it comes to like new and full moon intentions, sometimes those things may come full circle, but you may be noticing just what you got back is kind of like, well, damn, like that was like it happened that quick, so it's kind of powerful. So with that being the case, if you are experiencing that, it's a good time to reflect on the things that you actually put in place, because sometimes you might want to ask yourself, like, did I actually believe that was actually going to happen? Was I paying attention to when I did that at that time? So now it's kind of time to realize like what you put into effect, is to be like, and to realize what you have to tend to and be responsible for, because these are your plants, these are the things that you are putting the energy into, and you have to honor the intentions that you created. Sometimes when you speak things out into existence, or you just set things in motion, you don't necessarily know for sure, or there was a part of yourself that didn't actually know that this would be like this, or that this would actually happen. So enjoy some of those fruits. Enjoy what it's really important for you to think about what the 2022 year is going to be setting you up for and leading you into. As far as the inner guidance, I would definitely say that I wanted to pull a message for the collection because I was thinking back. I had actually planned to pull a Sagittarius season message. I'd actually planned to pull a Sagittarius season message, but Spirit and the universe had different plans, and it's okay because it's like we're really supposed to make plans. We're supposed to set our intentions. It's kind of like I really think of it like when we're kind of like looking at like a dartboard. It's like you really can't throw the shot lined up because it's going to be a drop off. So it's like you set intentions and you always aim higher to account for where it's going to land. So it's really nice when you have like an intention and then like the universe is like it kind of blows it in a different direction and it still lands on the mark or even a better spot. So definitely events took a different direction. So while I would have loved to give that channel message, my seasonal messages may or may not coincide with the season. It's really just dependent on how things are like transpiring at the time. Because at the end of the day, like I feel like I don't know if we like astrologers and things ever like really talk about that, but we're on this fucking earth too, and it's like while we're providing the sacred mysteries and information or just the knowledge, people may or may not be privy to, esoteric or cult or otherwise. We're implementing and channeling these portals just like anybody else, just as much as we're making the time to teach and heal and things of that nature. So it's like when these shifts were taking place, it was like, damn, these shifts is really good. It's like I'm taking notes. It's like, well, I gotta do this shit myself. So had to handle things and just take advantage of the blessings and the shifts that were taking place, because it's just syncing up with the moons and the planetary currents. It really just makes it conducive for success. But yeah, with this particular last Sagittarius season, I felt a really powerful message, just kind of stored in the heart. And a lot of times, when we answer these calls, like I really don't get rest until I channel out the collective message. And it's kind of like it's kind of like a requirement work. Somebody has to do it type of thing, but it's really like a blessing. But no, it's like really when you feel that ring, when you feel that call, like where you're supposed to be, like across the board. And a lot of us are answering the calls and lifestyle calls that we have to honor and commit to with ourselves. So with the Sagittarius season, it's like a lot of you, even without like touching on each individual sign, you may have noticed sensations related to things that you couldn't ignore anymore. The Sagittarius being the sign of sight and a higher understanding, you may have noticed that what really reflecting on what this year, what your actions this year have brought you, because that Scorpio season, I'll say, just that last Scorpio season was a lot of illumination. There was a lot of things coming to the surface. There was a lot of people, there was just a lot of things just being kind of the beans being spilled. And Sagittarius, when they got his hands on that information, was just like addressing so much shit. That's just all this shit coming to the limelight. So you'll notice in the energy that with this last kind of this full moon, you may have this opportunity to ask yourself, what is it that I really want? What have I been feeling within my metaphysical body, my heart, like the heart and the heart is feeling a really strong vibration right now in the collective. It's taking a lot of beating, a lot of battering. I think some people's chirons actually may be flaring depending on your placement, especially if they've suffered identity traumas, first house traumas, things of that nature. Definitely trying to, when we tap into this full moon Sagittarius, when I saw the full moon, I've been seeing it leading up to today, last like 3 days, and it's been like super fucking clear. Like the night sky has been like super clear. And it's been like a really amazing thing to see because, the temperature here has been like, in the 50s. So it's like, it has been not too cold, not too hot, even for this winter time, feeling the Yule energy. A lot of people may be thinking about like just what's kind of dying away, what can come from this rebirthing of self, relationships, energies, you know, ways that we express ourselves in the world around us, just all that stuff, the ways we're represented. And are we just getting the best of that energy? Are we representing ourselves in the best way? You know, because we're dealing with Sagittarius, we have a tendency to want to see the idealism or optimism in things. So that can actually might be the thing that we needed after a lot of letdowns or just unexpected blows and just pains that we suffered expectedly and unexpectedly that may have our spirits debilitated, or just feeling like we're dragging and just kind of going through the motions. Leader of light. Where are you being called to serve and support others? So we may be finding that in a lot of ways we're seeking somebody that kind of is like a beacon, because the same things that we've been doing have not been necessarily satisfying our needs. Like it's kind of like watching like a spoiled prince kind of like being chauffeured around, but they're just sitting there sad, don't appreciate anything, kind of being offered to them. You're doing the things that that you told yourself are supposed to make you happy, but it still doesn't feel like enough. And that missing essence, that life force essence, that passion, you're not feeling any life spark because you're operating from the mind, and the mind always moves to satisfy the mind things, you know, to satisfy structure, to satisfy thinking, to satisfy look, to satisfy take, because the mind is satisfied with the ego, and the ego takes. So the ego always needs more and more and more and more and more. So if I got this much money, well, I need this, I need more. Okay, well, I got to look like this. And it's like, you're never actually satisfying the things that you need because you're not moving from the heart space. So you're not honoring the body. And the body listens to the heart. It listens to the soul. So what's taking place during this time with Gemini is anything that is on the sun, anything that's in the shadow is coming to the forefront. So you may be experiencing this weird sensation, and that weird sensation is that unfamiliar part of yourself that is being brought right next to you for you to have to deal with and kind of pilot now. It's kind of like watching you pilot a Gundam and you have no skill or affinity with the VI system. So you're just really struggling around there when you really should have been learning this shit a long time ago, and it's not really, the best for you. So some of you are maybe stumbling along, and some of you who have been doing a lot of self-reflecting or more so just focused on what you're trying to draw and bring to you during this time. It's a really powerful energy, I will say, for the most part. I think that over the next few days, it's really important that you may find yourself having more reflective dreams, and just considering what direction that the intentions that you set out are taking, and how you can optimize them for really the rest of this year, the wrap up of this year. As far as this weekend is concerned, it's really, the spirit is really just saying have fun, but just be mindful. Have clean fun. There's this word, the words that I'm feeling are clean fun. Yes, clean fun. Anything that gets out of hand, just kind of keep a leash on it, so that you can actually benefit from no side effects in the energy after the fact. Ultimately, this feels like a high vibrational time and shift. It's really hard to actually see where. It's really hard to say because everything is so expansive. It's actually even hard to say just how many good things are taking place. But many of you may be coming across unexpected treasures and connections, both in the physical and within yourself, and discovery of gifts that you had never even realized. Some of it may be coming from that euphoric state when we're kind of, going through a lot of issues, and we're in that kind of that limbo state, that in gnosis state. And some of you have definitely been dealing with enough pressure to constitute a gnosis Geno state, and then be feeling this enlightenment and discovery of self. So there's a lot of blessings during this time, and I wish each and every one of you empowerment, because if we always have to live with the choices that we make, but at least if we're dealing with good and bad choices, that we're gaining the wisdom that allows us to elevate. So, much love and many blessings during this full moon, Gemini. May the wisdom be honoring you. I hope that this message, as far as myself and channeling, is resonating within your spirit and is touching you in the areas that it can actually make the most impact on you and the most use. Definitely make sure to like and share, and drop a comment if you've been loving this message. I'll be dropping more content, and I'll definitely be making some posts about the because I really have to talk more about the Venus and the Venus and Capricorn retrograde. I'll be dropping another podcast now that I have time to actually get around to that, and some other really good updates and things in store, new products and new candles that I'll be dropping, virtual classes, things of that nature. So really just kind of hard to talk about it all, but I hope that each and every one of you is having just as many breakthroughs, because we have to make our own way, and it's not always easy out here to focus on success. But much love, many blessings, and ashe.